The Last of Us Part 1 is one of the best games of all time and one of my personal favorites. Naughty Dog was able to craft a world that was both horrific and beautiful while also giving us a story of loss and acceptance. Well, sort of. It's a game that really is one of those generational games that every gamer can sit back and say, yup, they cooked. And then you have The Last of Us Part 2. I've played a lot of games, namely Call of Duty, so my standards for good stories aren't typically high because I'm used to seeing things like trains exploding, snowmobile chases, or even the every now and then character dies, and then surprise, comes back during a season trailer. Yet with games like The Last of Us, for some reason, my expectations are rather high, and maybe that's because it's the first game to actually make me cry, because when you have moments like this, I have a stream of tears running down my face, and that could be the acting, animation, or even the events that lead up to it. From a gameplay standpoint, I will not knock The Last of Us Part 2. The melee combat and stealthing of the game is extremely fun. But the story itself is not pleasant. Spoilers, Joel dies. Outside of that one moment that made me go, wait a minute, the Joel I know would never have ended up in this situation, the entire thing is just a drag to play. If not for the gameplay, I probably would have been out on this as quick as a Kardashian marriage. I mean it when I say it is a drudge of an experience, and I think a major part of that is due to the characters more than it is the actual story. The main story explores Joel's decision at the end of Part 1 and retcons it. That way his decision actually has real consequences, setting up this theme of revenge and how far would you go for it while also keeping up this idea of, is revenge actually worth it, as we see throughout the entire campaign just how costly revenge is. Which to me can be very interesting and very compelling when it's done correctly. Like to me, a revenge story works really well in Red Dead Redemption. At the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, you have John killing Micah, then which sends off this big chain reaction that leads into the events of Red Dead Redemption 1. But in The Last of Us Part 2, you end up having that cycle of revenge, end up being the player character killing droves of goons until they get to the final boss, Abby, that has the two players go at it for one last brawl that ends with them just going, alright, peace out, enjoy your life. And for me, it made the entire experience just a complete and total middle finger. But setting the story aside, the big thing that ends up getting me at the end of the day with this game is all the characters. Outside of Joel, Tommy, Ellie, every single character in this game is unbearable to deal with. Like on Ellie's side of the camp, you have Jesse and Dina that have the personality of paint drying, but on Abby's side, you just have all the characters displaying some of the worst traits in human beings I've ever seen. But then there's this point in the game when you play as Abby, which is in itself awful storytelling. Like, I don't know why they said, hey, let's have her kill off the main character, play as Ellie, and then all of a sudden turn around and go, you know what? Play as Abby. Because once I hit the point of playing as Abby, I was already rooting against all of these characters. Nothing you could do in any way, shape, or form would change my mind on how I felt about these characters. And they try to make these characters likable, but they just do such a bad job of making any of them likable. Like, at the end of the day, I literally thought Abby was the biggest piece of shit in the entire world. Because no matter how much they try to make Abby somewhat likable or have us sympathize with her, time and time again, they make her the worst character in this entire story and do nothing but have me as a player root against her. Really, what drags down this experience is truly the characters. Like, the story I can give some leeway to. Like, there is some moments where I'm like, this is actually good storytelling. And the crazier thing to me is Ellie's story starts off really strong. Like, I think it's actually interesting to follow. But then when you get to the big switch where they have you play as Abby, it is some of the longest, most boring, most drudgiest level of gameplay I have ever seen. There are cool points where they show like how they're overlapping a little in their story and how close really Ellie was to Abby in certain situations. And there is a part of me to some certain degree that feels like if they kind of just did a swap in how the stories were told, where they have you play as Abby first, then as Ellie, I probably would have liked the story a little bit more. But to be honest with you, I don't think that would have mattered. Like, there's also part of me that exists that's like, this wouldn't have mattered at all what they did, because they really just make these characters so goddamn unlikable. I didn't also, on Ellie's story, I didn't care about Dina or Jesse. When Jesse dies, I shrugged, but they make it a big moment. When Dina kind of talks about how she's pregnant, I honestly don't care. Like, it's not something that I'm that invested in. At the end of the day, Last of Us Part 2 has some really good things about it. Like the gameplay, some story elements are really good, but the characters and really most of the story aren't really that great of an experience. Like, I'd rather read a Twilight book instead of going through this game sometimes. Like, again, it has some great gameplay elements. There are some decent story elements, but a lot of the bad is outweighing the good, and sometimes it's hard to play this game. But I'd like to know what you have to say in the comment section below. What do you think of The Last of Us Part 2? Do you think the characters were actually that bad? Were there characters that I didn't enjoy, maybe that you did enjoy? Let me know what you have to say in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, great. Maybe consider leaving a like. And if you didn't, well, it's not getting much better than this. Thanks for watching, and well, bye.